Tom, really good to get together for another discussion. And how are you doing today?
Doing good, Martin. It's good to see you.
Excellent. The discussion I wanted to have, and hope others will chime in on it, came to mind for some reason recently working on my men's book. And it was remembering a time that Robert Bly came to the Triangle area, probably 15 years or more ago. And he was doing a workshop for men on what is your legacy project. And it was one of those I had never thought of, I'd never looked at. Obviously, he was ahead in years, and he brought up this idea that I hadn't really considered, but clearly was interested in, but wasn't conscious of. This idea that many of us as men, and I don't want to exclude women, but it seems to be more statistically with men, have a desire to create something or work on a project that outlives us. And I want to have that discussion with you. Tom, I'll let you add anything in and just explore it a little bit.
Well, I think it's a really common experience. I think that, the most common way that men do that is through their children. To have children shows that they will indeed be passing something on to the future generations. And that's why paternity is so important to men. Mm-hmm. Women know that they have the children because their stomach gets huge. There's no question about what's happening with them. But with the man, there's a question there about, is this my baby or not? And so that's part of why that question may be so important to men, is that it's a part of our legacy. It's a part of what we want to leave to the world. And we want it to be our contribution, not someone else's that we're going to take care of.
Some of the things I liked that Bly brought up was not having to explain it, justify it, but just own it and realize it's an important aspect of your psyche, if it is.
Yes.
And then exploring it. And I think that's so important, because I think that's one area men often get caught is, well, why do you want to do this? And then they have a real rich emotional gut experience, but may not have all the language to explain it. I think that was a very important piece that Bly brought up, that was giving men permission to have it, own it, and know what it is, work on it, and not have to explain it or apologize for it. And
yeah.
I think that's a piece too. Go ahead.
Yeah, good. No, I'm just agreeing with you. I think it's a good idea.
And so I started looking at what mine was, and I realized that one of the things that was important to me was I had led the men's discussion group for 12 years. My first book, which was putting together these rich conversations and questions that organically evolved over the 12 years I led it, and have it there in a book. And that was one of them that I realized was important to me. And it's funny, it's a dense book. It's not an easy read. It's organized where it's more like different men answering questions. You almost need to open it and read some of it. But of all the things I produced, it's one of the more important things to me right now, today. Now, I want to do other things. I want to come up with the next book, because I think that element of what's maturing for men is it. And and that's a book I've kept trying to push away. Like, I don't have time and resources, or I'm not good enough or an expert in this area to do it. And it keeps coming back to me. And I really wonder if there isn't a quality to the legacy project where it's something like you can't let go of it. It keeps stalking you until you embrace it. And see what your views on that are.
Yeah. I just think about men around the world and how this is not something that's just for us guys from the US or even from Europe. You think about things like the Taj Mahal and huge buildings that have been left, obviously as a legacy for men. And it is an interesting question, why it is that men seem to be more interested in legacy than women. And I don't know that I have the answer to that, but it is I think you're right. I think that it is more on the man's side than it is on the woman's side. I'm not sure why. It may be that due to men's greater agency, but who knows?
Yeah. But it's an important piece. And I love the question, exploring. First of all, it's okay if you aren't called to this. It's okay if you're a man and somehow don't have one. I think that's important.
Right.
It's okay if you're a woman, and this is a real important piece too.
Yes,
But
yes.
the of it is we as human beings need to have significance for most of us and meaning. And
There
this
you
is part of the mix of meaning. But the funny thing about meaning is if you over focus on meaning and hold it too tightly in life and don't have a sense of humor or a lightness to it, it almost becomes meaningless. And I think that's another component of this, that it's a balance between meaning and meaninglessness. What's your view on that?
I think that meaning is important in all spheres, and the work that I've done over the years, the grief work, that's meaning is what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
How there's meaning in the grief, and of course, in our culture, the grief is meaningless. People come to me and they say, "Why am I doing this? Why am I continuing? And this doesn't make any sense." But if you go to an African culture, and they talk about grief, and they talk about how the tears of grief are fuel for the person who died. It's like there's meaning in that. Then I need to cry more. I need to do this because there's meaning in this for my loved one.
Mm-hmm.
Or there are all kinds of little pieces in these rituals where what we do in this life after a death helps that person move to a different state in the beyond. Mm-hmm. So meaning is so critical in almost every sphere. But legacy is certainly one that is critical for that. Yeah.
Tom, are there any legacies that you can identify for yourself?
Oh, geez. Yeah, of course, my kids is the first one. My books is another one. But I was thinking about that the other day. The YouTubes that I've done online are kind of a legacy. My grandson now is 2 years old. And in 10 years, maybe 15 years, he may be interested in that kind of information. Maybe not. But I may not be here, so he'll be able to see what I was thinking at the time. So it kind of leaves something as a marker, as a testimony to what I've done.
There's a great quote, and I hope I get this right, of what do you want your great-grandsons or grandkids, children, to know and learn about you?
Yeah, nice question.
And I thought, it's really like jumping out multiple generations and looking back.
Yeah,
and I think that's another question of the legacy. Now,
that, and it also points towards what we need to do in this life.
Right.
That's the importance of that question, is how do we want to be remembered? But it's also, that says, okay, if we want to be remembered like this, then we need to get off our ass and do that now. Mm-hmm. That whole thing of how you want to be remembered is a fascinating one, and it's one that dying people are really interested in. They most people don't know, but a lot of times the dying person, that's on their mind. They're wondering, how am I going to be remembered? A lot of times, if we're with someone who's dying, we can tell them how we're going to remember them in one way or another, and they really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. Is being with them and say or even just sharing the stories you remember great about them or appreciate.
Exactly.
Because it's kind of not instead of just getting there going, I'm going to remember you when you die by these 3 things.
Yeah, that's a little bit on the that doesn't work. You need to be a little bit more slick than that. But just saying, gosh, I was thinking about the times we did such and such. That really meant a lot to me. Boom, there it is.
Somebody asked me about importance of passion and meaning in an interview recently, and I was thinking of the fact that how important it is to me that I live with a sense of urgency that I won't live forever.
Yeah.
Yes. So that and a weird insight I got years ago that my life felt meaningless, and maybe it was meaningless because I hadn't done enough to give it meaning. And, not that I needed some medication or something else. I'm not against someone who really does need that. But, sometimes when you feel like your life's meaningless, maybe you need to get off your ass and do something.
Yeah.
And so this could also tie into that legacy project. What do you want to be remembered for? What do you want? one way, another way of viewing it is, if my whole life were a thumbprint on something, when it goes away, is it going to leave a smudge to clean up, or some type of interesting artistic pattern, or a statement, as another way to view it?
Yeah, yeah, indeed.
There was a quote, I'm paraphrasing, I think from Martin Heidegger, that basically said that until you really embrace your mortality, being fully alive isn't going to happen. It's an option.
Right.
And I think that's, I remember that really came to me when my dad was worried about his gravesite and everything working. I go, Dad, you have the money. Why don't you just prepay for it? Let's get it done. We'll go up there. We'll do it. It's important to him. He was concerned. Is there enough room for us and all this? And I said, let's get it done. Well, I didn't know when I said, let's get it done, he was going to get a gravesite for, my mother and him. They were, they passed in their home together, but also for me and my future wife, which I was dating Barbara at the time. So we get up there and there are 4 gravestones, and one of them was mine. And at first I was pretty uncomfortable. And then then all of a sudden I went, what an opportunity to pause a minute and realize this is where my body's going to end up. Turn into that anxiety, whatever that uncomfortable is, and face it. And I just stopped there a moment and I looked around. It's in Wilmersdorf. It's a beautiful landscape area and the quietness, and there's a little ballpark over here. And I just paused there standing, at my own future grave and thinking about it, and then taking a moment, what do I need to do before I get here? And exactly. It had a real, I'm sorry, go ahead, Tom.
The Ebenezer Scrooge moment.
Right. Ebenezer
we see our own grave.
Yeah.
It's good.
And it really had a moment to go, some of the things that showed up is I still have another book, the second book of my men's stuff to get done. But then again, it's one of those, we drift back to suffering easy is what I say. I put it away and then I brought it out and I started working on it. Then every time I hear of the tragedies of young men in our culture, I think I need to do it. And then I had to get validation from you. Is it worth doing? And, so I want to give that this is something you may fight with off and on in your life, but it's an important question to explore, this legacy project, and what does it involve? And also I think it's important it's done with responsibility. I mean, we have responsibility and accountability. I don't think it's a blank check to throw that out the window, but to work with it. And how I've worked it out in this case is I've got a friend that's willing to help out in exchange for some things. And once a week we're meeting and working on the book. So it's not like it's moving forward, but it's not moving forward real fast or anything else, but it's moving forward.
Yes.
And it's working within my other responsibilities. I mean, I'm taking 1 hour out of my life once a week, and we meet and we talk. And now I chose to have her a contributor in the book, and which is great because it'll bring a lot to it. And I think that's one of my legacy projects. And we may need multiple ones, or they may be important to us.
Yes.
One of the things I was thinking of also is the having a structure for fulfillment with your project. That, for me, it's not going to happen unless I set up things that kind of box me in to move it forward sometimes. And that's okay too. What with yours, you've really, what keeps you going? Is it discipline, or you just have fun making the videos, or do you let life in to go, oh my gosh, I need to stay this? What keeps you motivated in moving forward? Or does it not need any for you? For your videos and stuff?
Death is one motivator.
Okay.
I worked with dying people and grieving people for 15 to 20 years. And that really helped me. Because it just showed me every day I'd come home to my kids and hug them and go, you're alive. It's like, it really made me appreciate being alive and breathing. That, along with meditation, both those things. Mm-hmm. This is why they have the monks meditate in the crematoriums, or in the graveyards. because it puts them in that space where they go, uh-oh, you know, this is temporary. Get off my ass. Let's get things going. You know, so those kinds of things move me, you know, and I have this long-standing connection with death and dying from those years I worked. And every day I thank the Lord that I'm still breathing, you know. Thank you, Lord, for these many blessings. I mean, it's just it's just a very it's a wonderful opportunity for us to be alive and to be able to do this kind of thing, whether it's legacy, whether it's meditation, whether it's just, you know, creating a higher bit of consciousness within ourselves. I mean, it's just this is an amazing opportunity.
Well, this is mainly what I wanted to do, Tom, is just start the discussion, and the intention is, if anyone sees or hears this, add their comments, a disagreement, to have this conversation. Is a legacy project important to you? What is your legacy project? And just share how being given permission from someone I admire to not have to overanalyze its value or why I should have it, and let me have it. Yep. I know that sounds funny, but that was important to me.
JFD.
You know, and so I look forward to hearing people's comments as well. And also, Tom, I'm going to put, you want to mention some of where people can hear your content and your legacy project online, and then I'll put in the notes below.
menaregood.com is my website, and Men Are Good YouTube channel is where I do most of my work. And of course, now I've got the Patreon site, which is patreon.com/menaregood.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thanks, Tom.
I believe that men are good.
That's right. Excellent. Well, thanks very much. This was great. And I really look forward to hearing people's. I just wanted to open a conversation and invite other people to contribute to it.
Good. Good. Thank you, Bert.
Thanks.